This video is about the bad AI solution architecture that almost everyone uses. My name is David Hood at 42 Robots AI, and this is something that has been really obvious to me since mid-2023, and I'm really surprised that almost no one seems to have caught up to this. There's a few companies that I've seen mention similar things along these lines, but in general, this is not something that I see talked about really at all. And when I talk to clients, when I talk to other nerds doing this, they all who are actually building real-world practical AI solutions, they agree with me. They completely agree, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's you're right about that." So this is not based upon hand waving. There's a lot of talk about how to build AI solutions that's not built upon real-world practical applications. We've been doing a lot of R&D on this for the last basically year and a half. So since mid to early 2023. I've talked to a lot of different companies in terms of what their needs are and how to build those, and mapped out some potential solutions for them, and then actually been hired by some of these clients to build real-world solutions. And what I'm going to tell you is actually very, very true, as you can see, for 95% of use cases. And we've also built what I would call foundational building blocks with working with LLMs. Foundational working with LLMs building blocks. What does that mean? So one of the key pieces here is that it's not just about tuning the LLMs. It's about what is all the structure that lives outside the LLMs, and this is huge. This is a very large amount of the work that needs to be done. So I'll go a little bit more into that in a second when I go the bad versus the good. So and again, I think this is going to be true. Let's say we're sticking with the current transformer technology, which has basically been almost the same code, 500 lines of code since 2017, since Google released their paper. There are some exceptions, but let's assume that this is the current technology for the next 5 years. I think this is going to be much more obvious to everyone in the industry at that point, or in a lot of businesses, in terms of, oh yeah, the way you can see the way people are talking about it. You can see the solutions that they're trying to build, and it is backwards. It's upside down, like this house that's being designed upside down. And really, if you look at what's been the speed of LLM improvements, again, it really hasn't, like, how much better was GPT-4 than GPT 3.5? I mean, I think it was a decent bit better, but then since GPT-4, how much have the LLMs improved? So GPT-4 came out spring of 2023, and it is now August, almost fall of 2024. And people talk about the speed of improvements, but in general, the capabilities and the limitations has not really improved that much. It is improving, but to think that it's on like some sort of exponential scale right now, I do not think is accurate. Okay, let's get into the bad. So, I love Dilbert. The bad architecture that just about everyone I see building is an LLM-centric architecture. So this is where it's like a single LLM is put at the center of the solution, and then around it you have tools, and everything kind of flows through that single LLM. And whenever you're trying to make the solution better, it's all very focused on that single LLM, fixing that single LLM. Let's build an LLM for our use case. And you can tell when they talk about this, the solution is the model is the solution. There's a million different ways that people speak this and imply this with their language. First of all, OpenAI has said this exactly directly a little less than a year ago when they were talking about ChatGPT, which to me, is not accurate, and some people are catching on to this being wrong, but they're not really taking it to the next level. And you can tell by when somebody is talking about solving a problem and they say the model, that they're actually thinking like this. And this is where they use kind of, let's call it classic coding, deterministic code, deterministic, okay, whatever, deterministic coding as tools. The LLM is actually using them. And then you see a lot of talk about agentic and agents, and I'm going to mention a little bit more about this in a minute. There was somebody who about 4, 5, 6 months ago was on very, very well respected in the LLM space. Call an agent is basically an LLM on a loop, and that was, to me, made me just go, oh goodness, that's a really, really bad definition that's going to create super, super big problems. If you're thinking about agents like that, your ability to solve problems and to build agents that are effective at solving problems is going to be extremely limited. And then there's another part of this which I alluded to, but it really bears digging deeper into, which is shoving as much as possible into the LLM. They're trying to solve all the problems inside the LLM. This is what a lot of the companies are doing, well, especially model companies, which is understandable to a certain degree, but just an industry as a whole appears to still be trying to do this. So we're going to take an open source model and we're going to train it for our use case. That's the solution. No, that is not going to work. Again, in most real world scenarios, I think 95% is actually conservative. I think realistically it'll probably be more like 99%. The vast majority of the time, you're going to be leaving opportunity on the table by not thinking about the architecture in the correct way, what I would consider to be that correct way. Okay, so really this comes down to flipping it on its head. You want to think about it in terms of classic coding centric architecture. You're just building, let's say, Python code, and at key places you're using LLMs as tools to solve problems that you couldn't solve before, or that were really challenging to solve, or that smooth over different aspects of it, or that help the system, the software system, deal with some unexpected stuff. It helps the software system decide where to go. There's a whole bunch of different use cases for LLMs that go beyond what most people are thinking about with regards to chat and content generation. And I'm going to shoot another video on like what are the new capabilities that we get from LLMs. There's actually quite a bit, and a lot of it doesn't get talked about. But really think about, so that is much superior because for all sorts of reasons. Let me talk about this first. Really what you want to do instead of shoving as much as possible to LLM is you want to pull out as much as possible at the times where you call the LLMs. There's several reasons to do this. You can use lighter weight models so it's less expensive and faster, but also most importantly, you get reliable outputs. And this is key to solving real world problems. Part of the problem with using ChatGPT in business processes, a huge part of it is that while it's really cool, a lot of times it just completely fails. And in this case, like if you're trying to put that in a real world business process where millions of dollars or lives are on the line, that is unacceptable, where let's say 30% of the time it just fails. And what you need to do is you need to put it in this classic architecture so you can put basically failure handling into the process, and you can even use LLMs to evaluate themselves. There's a lot of pre-processing of data, post-processing. You use LLMs at multiple steps to pull apart things. There's just a whole bunch of different ways that when you start building it this way, there's a whole bunch of different stuff that you could do that you really can't do with the LLM-centric architecture. And what you end up with this is essentially what has been a completely deterministic process forever, barring like hardware errors, and you're injecting randomness into it. In terms of the LLMs work on a dynamic distribution, so you don't know exactly what's going to come out the other side. And this is another reason why there's a lot of work, a lot of new code that needs to be built to handle the randomness, to handle not just the randomness, but all the different aspects of LLMs properly. This is huge, and this is being basically ignored. All the money, all the time, and all the energy, like 99% of it is being put into building models, which I agree that there's a lot of that needs to be done, and that's really great work, but you can't ignore the other part of this equation. This is like building a bunch of race cars without training race car drivers. Who's going to drive them? The people who build the race cars are not the people that drive the race cars. There's two very different skill sets. There's some alignment, but in general, it's not the same thing. And I mentioned you can kind of split up the problems. Now, this isn't always true. There are some times where it's like, actually, you just kind of want to do it like holistically. And that is applicable. But even in that case, this architecture is superior. And I mentioned this as well. So know the current LLM structure, even with GPT-7, so we're August 2024, GPT-5 isn't supposed to come out until late 2025. So let's say 2029, if it's still the same LLM architecture, this will not change. And there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, startups are betting on not AGI. Even if it becomes AGI, depending on how you define that, it still will have some of the limitations, and it will still need this architecture. So I don't think that this is betting against that. And there's a whole other topic on why that's almost like a toxic thing to say to people. You don't know if it's coming. Maybe it will take 10 years. You can't just sit around and wait. Well, they say AGI is coming. Okay, we're just going to wait for that. But even in that case, I do not think that is the architecture you want for real-world practical AI solutions. You need to put it within classic coding to handle a bunch of different stuff. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on this front. And this brings me to agents, which I kind of don't like as much anymore, even though I think it's more of a marketing tool. It's very sensationalized. The word, when I hear agentic, it kind of makes me a little bit, like a little bit ick, because it just implies more than is there, and it also implies that this level, this kind of central bad architecture. The better way to think about it, instead of thinking about it as LLMs using classic coding for tools, it's the other way around. Classic code uses LLMs as tools, and really it's just software with LLMs embedded in it that use, I guess if you want to take it to another level, that use at a minimum LLMs for decision making, and then maybe for chat. Not required, but probably most likely for chat. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. It's really just software with LLMs. That's really what it comes down to. That does some of the cool stuff with that is cool and new from LLMs. Don't get me wrong, LLMs are amazing, and there's new things that they've solved, but they don't do everything. They're nowhere near that. Now, why does this happen? This picture kind of, let me make this a little bit bigger. This picture kind of explains a lot of it. So let me take a really big step back, and it took me almost a year to kind of figure this out. And I think this is a large amount of the truth, but I think there's a little bit more going on here than this. What do little boys love? Ninjas, dragons, and robots. They want the robot to be their friend. They want the robots to be here. And so you have a lot of groupthink in Silicon Valley and just in general among kind of tech bros. And I'm a very techie guy myself. I love technology, but I think I'm grounded a lot more in reality than a lot of these people, in practicality, because they're believing what they want to believe. They want to believe their robot friends are here. That's really what it comes down to. It's so cool. Yes, you can have your robot friend, you can have your Wally, you can have whatever, and it just feels so close that they're seeing what they want to see. There's this example. A month or two ago, I was listening to some PhD computer science guy talk about models and capabilities, and he started to just briefly touch on what I'm talking about here, and he immediately put a stop on it in his own. It wasn't somebody else talking about it, it was himself, and he basically said, well, I don't want to do that though. I don't want to solve problems that way. That's not interesting. That's not fun. That's not how I want to do it. Okay, well great, but that's where the practical solutions are going to come from right now. If you're looking in 2024 to solve real world problems for your business, your clients' businesses, or your customers, then it's not about what's interesting and what's not interesting. And so there is just a huge thinking rut that is caused because of this. And I also think that there's a lack of just practical systems thing. And this is all kind of connected. Thinking about the system as a whole in terms of, just how does this step affect all the other steps? Instead of trying to just like solve everything in one shot with one LLM and with a little bit of window dressing that's basically a ChatGPT wrapper, I think that's just going to leave you in basically with very suboptimal solutions. And that's why I think a lot of the people out there are still saying, well, we haven't really been very effective at building AI solutions. It's because of this. The architecture is wrong. And then, yes, we have a vested interest, like OpenAI and the big model companies have a vested interest in getting people to believe that the LLMs are more than they are. So they're out there talking about it. And even OpenAI isn't even just more than they are now. The way that they're talking about where it's going to be in the near future and how they're talking about, I think Sam Altman was mentioning like, oh, we're going to crush if all these use cases that people are talking about, we're going to crush them. Unless you have a new AI architecture, LLMs will not crush everything. It's just not feasible. There's too many limitations. So if you're part of a business and you're looking to implement AI within your company, give us a call or put a link in the description to contact us for us to have a discussion, and I'll give you a free custom AI implementation roadmap. We'll cut through the BS and identify what are the real world things that you can do and how do you go about actually implementing them to get value from AI this year, not next year, not in 2029 when AGI comes, now. Thank you very much. Have a great day.